Today, April 8th, the birthday of one of the most important and most misunderstood figures in Puerto Rico's history. A revolutionary, a doctor, a writer, and a man full of contradictions. But today, we're not doing the hero story. We're doing the real one. Hola everybody, welcome back to another episode of Chronicles and Cocktails. I'm Josué, the spirited historian. And today, on his birthday, we're breaking down 5 things about Betances they don't usually tell you. Ramón Emeterio Betances was born in Cabo Rojo in 1827. He was not just a revolutionary. He was a doctor, a writer, and a thinker with influence far beyond Puerto Rico. His roots were already complex. Dominican ancestry from his father and French ancestry from his mother. A family of merchants and landowners in the southwest of Puerto Rico. From a young age, he was sent to France to study, where he was exposed to free thought and European intellectual life. That experience shaped everything. Years later, he returned to Puerto Rico and worked as a doctor in Mayagüez, right in the middle of a cholera epidemic. And this is where something important happens. He becomes known as El Médico de los Pobres y los Negros because he prioritized the poor over everyone else. That created tension with colonial authorities, not because he was incompetent, but because it was dangerous. His medical work pushed him deeper into abolitionism, which eventually led to exile. From there, his life becomes transnational. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Paris, which he considered his second homeland. He had 2 loyalties, Puerto Rico and the Antilles, and Paris, France, what he called amores complementados. To understand Ramón Emeterio Betances, you have to understand the Paris he breathed. Imagine a city in total transformation when Betances first arrived in the 1840s as a young medical student. Paris was a maze of muddy medieval alleys. By the time he died there in 1898, it was the city of light, the world capital of modern medicine, radical politics, and the Eiffel Tower. Betances wasn't just a spectator in Paris. He was a protagonist while he was earning his medical degree and eventually receiving the Légion d'honneur for his brilliance. He was moving through a social circle that felt like a who's who of the 19th century. His closest bond was with Segundo Ruiz Belvis. Together, in the Parisian cafés, they didn't just talk about medicine. They plotted the abolition of slavery and the independence of Puerto Rico. But think about who else was walking past him on the Boulevard Saint-Germain. Betances lived through the era of Victor Hugo. Both were staunch Republicans and fierce abolitionists. It's almost certain they shared the same air in the political salons of the time. As a man of science, Betances practiced medicine, while Louis Pasteur was revolutionizing the field just blocks away from where Betances lived. And in his later years, as the official delegate of the Cuban Revolutionary Party in Paris, he was the bridge between the Caribbean and the French intellectual elite. When Dreyfus Affair broke out, the massive scandal involving justice and anti-Semitism, Betances was there, likely reading Émile Zola's famous J'accuse in the morning papers. seeing the same fight for justice he fought for his own people. From the barricades of the 1848 revolution to the glamorous cafés in the Belle Époque, Paris wasn't just where Betances lived, it was the forge where the father of the fatherland sharpened his tools for revolution. Betances died in Paris at 71, sick and relatively in poverty. His ashes were later brought to Puerto Rico, and today they rest in Cabo Rojo at the main plaza next to the San Michael the Archangel parish. The flags of Lares, Cabo Rojo, and Puerto Rico surround the tomb. A man who never stopped fighting far from home. I've stood here, right in front of his apartment in Paris, Neuilly-sur-Seine, where Betances lived during his years in exile. There's a plaque on the building, and I've seen it with my own eyes. And then, back home, in Puerto Rico, I've also walked through Cabo Rojo, his birthplace. The plaza, the streets, two completely different worlds, but both part of the same man. Paris, Cabo Rojo. That's Betances. He wrote, organized, and fought for independence across the Caribbean. And even though he never saw an independent Puerto Rico, his ideas never stopped. Alright, so this one is pretty cool. And I went back and did a little research on the drinks that were very popular in Paris, France at the time. And absinthe was very popular with intellectuals at the time, artists and writers, poets, politicians, and all these intellectual circles. And I don't know if you've had absinthe before. If you do, let me know in the comments. But absinthe was very popular in New Orleans also, in part because the French influence in New Orleans. So when I lived there, I tasted it. I was gonna taste it in France, but we just kept wandering all over and never got to it. The wine and the cocktails there are really nice. So yeah, so this is just a simple cocktail. Probably one that, according to my research, was very popular at the time. And let me show you some, because this part connects directly to that Paris world. If you found Betances in Paris late afternoon, you wouldn't just find a drink. You'd find this, a ritual. Strong, anise, high alcohol. And watch this, the clouding, that's the louche, that's chemistry. And these cafes, they were full of people thinking big, arguing ideas, talking about the future. And Betances is right there in that environment. He once said, "No quiero colonia, ni con España, ni con los Estados Unidos." Alright, so in the old times, you would drip a cube of sugar into a spoon designed with little holes. That way, you put the sugar cube and then you drip the water. And that process is slower than this one. Now, I wanted you to see the effect and how this cocktail was made. And usually it was presented by the bartender or the server, and it would slowly drip. Absinthe was highly, or thought to be highly hallucinogen. Highly hallucinogen. So, people claim they started seeing all kinds of stuff after drinking absinthe. And a lot of writers and poets, intellectual circles in Paris at the time Betances was there, this is what they would drink. And of course, herb saint is not absinthe, but it's a substitute, and it's very similar to absinthe in flavor because it's an anise-based liqueur. Absinthe at one point was illegal in the United States, so be careful with the kind of absinthe you use. Cheers. Ave Maria. Fact number 5. He was a pharmaceutical influencer for Scott's emulsion. While in Paris, Betances was a paid spokesperson for Emulsion de Scott, cod liver oil. This was not casual. This appeared in print advertisements across the Caribbean and New York. His name, his medical authority, and his credibility were used to promote the product. At a time when medicine and commerce were beginning to overlap, Betances positioned himself within that space. This makes him something very unusual for the time. Not just a doctor, but a doctor participating in early medical marketing, an early form of what today we would call medical endorsement or influence. He was recognized internationally, not just locally. Betances was awarded the Légion d'honneur by France. This did not come from his work in Puerto Rico. It came from his international role, specifically his diplomatic and political work linked to the Dominican Republic and broader Antillean movements. This medal is one of the highest honors France can give, and it places Betances in a category beyond local leadership. He was operating at an international level, recognized by a European power, engaged in transnational political movements. This confirms something important. Betances was not just a Puerto Rican figure, he was a Caribbean and international actor. So here's a really cool one. Chloroform was used extensively in the 19th century and early 20th centuries as a general anesthetic during surgery, though later discontinued due to toxicity. Betances brought chloroform to Puerto Rico in 1862, at a time when surgery meant intense pain. But this changed everything. Patients who previously endured operations fully conscious could now undergo procedures with reduced suffering. This was seen by many as almost miraculous, and it reinforced his reputation as el médico de los pobres. He was a Freemason, or at the very least, very associated with. Betances was deeply influenced by Freemasonry. This was not symbolic or superficial. Freemasonry in the 19th century functioned as a network of intellectual exchange, a political and philosophical framework, a space for liberal, republican, and antisocial ideas. Through this structure, Betances connected with individuals who shared ideas about liberty, sovereignty, and reform. This influence shaped his worldview, his alliances, his political strategies. Freemasonry was part of the infrastructure behind his thinking and actions. Now, here's one that is really interesting, and that we have to understand the times that happened. And history and the events of the past, you cannot judge with the eyes of today. I mean, it's unfair. It's unfair to everybody because there are things that were all right back then that are not right now. And that's just how the world works. You cannot judge. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't judge with today's perspective and knowledge the things that happened in the past. Whether you like them or not. You can say you don't like them, but to judge, it's something different. And this one in particular, he was in love with his own niece. And this is the one that most people avoid, of course. Betances was in love with his niece, María del Carmen Henry Betances, also known as Lita. This was not hidden, actually. This was formal. And they sought approval through the church. And a dispensation was granted by the Vatican. So the process was official, recognized, structured. I mean, everything was in place for marriage. But then she died just before the wedding, a few weeks before the wedding. This was not a rumor. This was not speculation. I mean, this is a documented part of his life and one that marked him deeply because he suffered Lita's loss for years to come. Look, Betances wasn't simple. He wasn't clean. He wasn't easy to define. And that's exactly why he still matters. Whether you agree or not with the independence movement, whether you agree or not with his family, or the way of living of his family, or the things that he chose and the people that he chose to love, well, Betances was a great figure. And it means a lot to Puerto Ricans. And he doesn't have to mean the same things for you that he means for me. He was so open. He was a man who changed. He was a man that got bored, like he wanted to keep going. He wanted to fight for Puerto Rico in different ways. I mean, he wasn't there in the Grito de Lares. He wasn't there in the Intentona de Yauco. But he was moving, he was planning, he was a planner, he was a coordinator, right? He moved and he wrote poetry, he wrote literature, he wrote newspaper articles, he wrote medicine articles, he debated, he traveled. He was a medic by profession, but he did so many things that I can picture him, and I can relate. Trying to change, trying to evolve, try to turn around things. He was an entrepreneur. He had a business in Paris too. So he was a lot of things. And maybe one day we can do an episode on all the things he was. Because again, Betances is not a simple person to dissect, to understand. There are many, many people, historians, investigating his life from different perspectives because it needs that many and probably more. And I'm not trying to dissect him. I'm just trying to show a little bit of him here and what he was besides the coordinator of the Grito de Lares. So thank you for watching. Have a great week. Have a great weekend when it comes. It's not that far away if you're watching today on a Wednesday. And I hope you like the Herb Saint absinthe cocktail. Have fun. Learn a lot. Read a lot of books. Travel and go to church. Salud.